I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. On the program, should Canada limit the number of years elected officials can hold office?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that there's a good reason to have something like that.
I just figure that you need to get some new blood in there, get some change.
Well, I think sometimes people get too comfortable in their roles.
No, I got no problem with someone staying 3, 4, 5 terms.
But first, the recent decision by the Canada Revenue Agency to look the other way concerning billions of dollars in alleged suspicious CERB claims has many Canadians scratching their heads and perhaps many more breathing a sigh of relief. CRA Commissioner Bob Hamilton says it's just not worth the effort to follow up on all of those claims. We sent our cameras out to ask Canadians how they feel about this decision and whether or not they think it's the right approach. Our question:
do you agree with the CRA decision to not investigate many possible ineligible pandemic relief claims?
I like it to kind of be case by case depending on how big the claims are and the impact, but I guess they can't go after everybody, I don't think, but I think the bigger ones for sure they should look into.
I mean, some probably they really should be investigating because it was too high of a payout, too much, I don't know. And some, the dollar's probably insignificant, that cost them more in postage.
Yeah, it's similar belief that, yeah, but they still got to pursue because, I was a small businessman and we didn't qualify. So there was a lot of people that were getting money that shouldn't have, I felt.
Because I think it's true. It cost them more to go and get the money back than they would spend more trying to get the money back than they would actually get back eventually. And the government spews out so much money. What was that program? The pay program where they redid all the paychecks and the Phoenix pay system. That was billions of dollars for nothing. Anyway, I think it's small potatoes, and it would cost them more to get it back than they would get back.
No, I don't. Because a lot of people take advantage of not only that, but all sorts of avenues like welfare, disability insurance. So no, I never agreed on that. I always thought that a lot of people, there's double checking, and the government doesn't bother checking or putting anybody on that.
Well, if they've done their homework, and that's what it comes out to, sure. Yeah, I agree. Yep. I mean, there's no sense spending $10 to get back $5.
I think they should be hunted down and made pay it back. Period. Why? Well, because they run after everybody for a few cents on income tax and look for every little thing they can find and audit you. No, I think they should have to pay it back because there was a lot of good people that really needed it, and I was very glad that it was in, but not for people that didn't need it. No. They should have to pay it back. Case closed, period.
I think so. If the government, the idea was to help people in a really bad time that everyone was going through. So I think it's their fault. They gave it to the wrong people. So I can see why you would want it back, because maybe it could go to other things, but that's what it was earmarked for, I guess. So I would say that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they say it's going to take more time and effort to get it back than it's worth, then I think that's a reasonable expenditure of effort.
I agree with their decision. They're the ones that have the titles. They're the ones that know the math. They're the ones that know the whole everything, right? I would listen to those guys best, right? You know what I mean? But at the same time, the government did just hand out the money to everybody. Here you go, man, with very blurred criterias to fit it, right? So it's unfair to ask for something back when you already gave it to somebody, right? And say, hey, man, you owe me this for helping you out when I said I was going to help you out for nothing, right?
Probably not, only because I'm going to guess that all the people have spent the money and they probably don't have the money now to actually give it back. So it's kind of I don't know, there used to be a saying that it's just trying to get money from something that I don't remember the saying, but it's if they don't have the money, it's kind of hard to get it back because they didn't have the money probably in the first place.
There comes the other side, what is the CRA's capability? Do they actually even have the resources? I sometimes think they're totally underfunded just alone to go, behind other tax-related issues. And I would be for it that they go, right, COVID-related issues. I think it's a fine line. Yes, it was for everybody a hardship, but I'm sure there are some people maybe who still took advantage of the system. Yeah.
And that they've decided to not pursue those people.
Yeah.
What
No, I would think they should pursue them. They should, at least, make an effort and have a look at these claims,
No, I think they should, because there are a lot of people that have collected and didn't need it. And who is that off? Off of other taxpayers. And you're going to charge more taxes on the people that are honest, and that's not fair.
They need to put in better safety nets at the beginning, or checks and balances, before they handed out the money. It's hard to, the horse is out of the barn, so that's about it on that one. So no, I'm not disappointed.
Yes. Okay, so at first I did not agree at all. I wanted the revenue agency to really go and get this money that was not attributed correctly. But now I'm toning it down personally, so that we think of looking forward and solving other issues in Canada than trying to get that back.
After recording high drug overdose rates in that province, British Columbia has now started their 3-year trial of decriminalizing the possession of small amounts of street drugs, which include heroin and cocaine, up to 2.5 grams per person. Its aim is to reduce the stigma, which the province feels prevents many people from seeking the help they require. This problem is not exclusive to British Columbia. In fact, every province and territory in Canada deals with drug addiction to some degree. So, do you agree with this approach of decriminalizing small amounts of street drugs, and should this be applied to other jurisdictions within Canada? Our question.
Should the rest of Canada follow BC's lead on decriminalizing possession of small amounts of hard drugs?
I think it'd be a good idea to ease it in slowly, because you've seen it in other countries that have the same principles where they don't have them as illegalities, and they see a lot of crime rates based around those drugs dropping. So I think it would be introduced slowly a good idea.
I mean, there could be value in looking into it and trying to, open up a little bit on the regulation to try and stop all the petty crime that happens around it. And, honestly, it should look more into helping the people that need assistance getting away from addictions.
Yes, I mean, just look at Portugal, right? Like, they've decriminalized it and it's cut down their, stuff like that. People go into rehab or don't feel like they're going to get in trouble for saying they're an addict and they need help.
Well, I think it's going to probably happen, right? I think everyone's watching closely to see how it is, but there's less people going to jails and right for picking up for 2.5 grams. So I don't know, you have to do something, because what's happening now ain't working. But if you really want to stop with the drug problem, you have to go to grassroots. You have to start with the family communities, because otherwise it's useless. Guys go to treatment, but if they're coming back to the same place, they got all those skills and stuff, but no one else around them does. So until you start looking at a different approach, then I guess you have to, why criminalize people that shouldn't be criminalized for addictions that don't know how to stop?
I think there's a good harm reduction case to be made as well for not criminalizing addiction effectively.
I would generally lean towards legalizing it more, but do the demographics of it, right? Having more safer drugs in the community would mean less deaths and less crime, because we'd put out a lot of drug dealers out of business for sure, right? And then everybody stealing minor stuff and breaking in homes and doing robberies on the spot that people would drop, right? And then people would also at the same time consider heavily about quitting more, right? Instead of feeling like people are always out to get them when they already feel like that on drugs.
I do, because the expense to the economy that it takes incarcerating these people and putting them through the policing system, it just causes such a downfall of a cascade of effects. And I just think it's worth it for us to instead support these people instead of incarcerate them and charge them.
I don't think so. I really don't see the purpose. I actually personally, I don't really understand the purpose of it. I just think it's going to cause more problems.
yeah, I can see it all over the streets. I've been in Victoria. There were a lot of homeless people, addictions, problems, and I always think help them at least, and like they did there, in the rest of the country as well. Yeah, I've totally been for it. Yeah,
Definitely. I think so, yes.
What is it about that issue that you think the rest of Canada should follow?
Well, I mean, it's not just a BC problem. It's a global problem. It happens all over the world in big communities, small communities. I think definitely if it can cut down on deaths, that's a good thing.
Yes, I think you should decriminalize it. Absolutely. Because you need to give people an incentive to find a purpose in the way they live their lives. And we also need to support people if they decide that that's, narcotics is not a positive route. We need to support them towards something else. So decriminalizing it is one pathway for doing that.
Although I'm not sure it may not promote more use. That's the only thing that worries me personally, but I'm definitely not an expert. And there's enough experts saying, give this a try. But the question I still have is everybody says, well, Europe this or Portugal this, but their programs are inclusive. They reintegrate people into society, and we don't seem to have these wraparound services that come with drug use.
I think they should really look at it hard. I think it's we got to be progressive, and whatever it's going to take to get it a little better under control, I'm for it.
Well, I guess due to my age, I'm not involved in that culture, but it's really tragic to see that these people are dying on the streets because of contaminated drugs. I guess it's worked in Europe in places, so it might be something worth looking at.
I would say yeah, to be honest, because I actually learned about this in class the other day, about the problem within Canada of the drugs, and I really do think that it would be good to decriminalise them, because I think that it would then not be as taboo for people to use drugs. And yeah, I think definitely.
So you think it would help with the stigma?
Yeah, I think it'd help with the crisis as well, and it'd maybe normalise it, so then people would want to. It's the same that would happen with weed here. Weed's still illegal in England. But yeah, I think weed, the rates have gone down now for cannabis, haven't there, or something? I was learning about that the other day. So, yeah.
All right. And you, should other cities do it?
I agree with what she just said. I don't think it would normalize it per se, but for sure somehow help people accept that it's something that there are drugs. It happens. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. But they don't need to be forbidden.
I don't know if it solves the problem here. I guess it'll be interesting to see if it solves BC's problem, because they have a big problem. But personally, I'm a bit against drugs, and but I haven't had any situation where I've needed it, and I understand that some people have a very tough time. So, but personally, I'm somewhat against it.
When was the first woman elected to Parliament in Canada? Was it 1896, 1921, or 1940? The answer, 1921.
In 1921, history was made when Canada's first female Member of Parliament was elected. Agnes MacPhail was born in Grey County, Ontario, to a farming family. In 1921, most women in Canada were eligible to vote, and MacPhail decided she would run for office. She won her Ontario riding on December 6th of that year. Over almost 2 decades, Agnes MacPhail proved to be an effective voice in Parliament, focusing on issues such as pensions for seniors, equal pay for women, ethnic and religious tolerance, and improving conditions in prisons. In 1940, MacPhail was defeated in the federal election because a blizzard kept people from voting in her riding. She would go on to serve in provincial politics after that. Former Canadian Prime Minister John Diefenbaker once said of her, "Canada produced 5 great politicians. Agnes MacPhail was one of them." Currently, there are no term limits for elected officials in Canada. A poll done by the Angus Reid Institute back in 2019 found that 54% of Canadians preferred term limits for politicians, something along the lines of 2 consecutive 4-year terms, similar to the U.S. presidents. So once again, we sent our cameras out to get your opinion on the matter. Our question:
should Canada limit the number of years elected officials can hold office?
I think so. Sometimes you need change, and if you're stuck with the same person and the changes aren't happening, then you need to have someone come in and make some changes.
Well, I think sometimes people get too comfortable in their roles, and if you have new blood, it's rejuvenating and re-energizing the whole process. I mean, not to say that somebody who's been in the business a long time can't do a good job. They certainly can. They have a lot of experience. So you have to weigh that against the advantage of having new blood, I guess.
I think if they're contributing, why can't they stay for more than 2 terms? Maybe 4 terms, but 2 is a little short because you may not gain their experience.
I don't think so. I think they can keep getting voted in. I think that they should keep going as long as if they're doing something right, whether you agree or agree with it. If the majority keeps voting them in, I think that they should be allowed to keep going in.
Yes, definitely.
Why?
I just figure that you need to get some new blood in there, get some change, and a popularity contest should not be the way politics should be run.
Okay, ma'am?
Yes, because a party can still hold office. It just doesn't have to be the same leader. And I am getting a little tired of the same leader all the time.
I think people get stale and they get complacent, and they shouldn't stick around for too long. They should know when it's time to leave the party, and 2 terms is plenty.
Well, I think the system can take care of it on its own. If the guy's doing a good job, he should be able to keep going, I think. But if he's not, he should be tossed out, and that's the way our system works. It's worked pretty well in the past, and hopefully it can continue. I mean, if you got a really good guy in there, it'd be a shame to not have him out, have him not be able to come back for the 3rd term or whatever. I mean, leadership is such an important thing at this time in the world, and it's hard to make rules like that, I think.
Yes.
Why?
Why? Because, i.e., you wouldn't have people like Trudeau putting all this money in other countries when they should leave the money here. And if we didn't have them for a long period of time, we were sure of getting them out and voting somebody else.
So, no, I got no problem someone staying 3, 4, 5 terms. If we vote them in, we vote them in.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that there's a good reason to have something like that. If someone's leader of a party and it's going well, then they can continue to serve as long as their party will have them, I think.
So in my opinion, no, you should give chances and opportunities to different people, and I believe it works better, but that's just my opinion.
Why? I think it wouldn't be a bad thing to have a limit on terms because it's a long time for a person to be in power. To have a few terms be the limit, I think that would be okay.
The threat of a recession occurring in this country has been looming for months now. Over the past 3 years since the onset of the pandemic, economies around the world have been feeling the pressure, and Canada is, of course, no exception. Interest rates have risen, and inflation rates have dropped slightly. Even so, Canadians are paying more for everyday goods and services than they were a year ago. So, if a recession adds to the strain, are you prepared to tackle it head on? Our question.
Are you preparing for a recession? If so, how?
I am being a lot more careful with money lately, for sure. Like during COVID and stuff, when stuff started to relax, I started spending money because it was the first time you kind of got to move around freely. But now you're being a little bit more careful now about how I spend money, for sure.
Well, my big preparation was I sold my company just recently within the last month. But we're definitely looking at it, preparing for possible work shortages. Work is really busy now. I'm an engineer. We've been having some good years, but we're getting ready for things to change. So just preparing our staff to say, hey, You might not have to work as much overtime, which is probably a good thing. But yeah, just being ready that we'll have to do some changes.
Well, we've lived our whole life preparing for. We don't spend elaborately. We grew up in a generation where you didn't spend money you didn't have. So that's the way we live, and so we're prepared. If we have to go into a recession, we'll be able to handle it. But it's a lifestyle more than anything. I think you need to always be aware of what might be down the road.
Prepare. It's very hard. You can't put money aside because everything is going up and up and up, and the salaries aren't going up. So unfortunately, a lot of people are relying on food banks and things like that. And they can't prepare because they don't have the extra money to put aside.
There's a lot of things now that make our lives a lot harder financially because of the recession. So saving money is the best thing you can do, but getting a job is hard, that pays well, and then you get taxed. And so, yeah, it's a bit of a cycle that's never ending, that's not good. So,
Okay. And what are you doing to prepare?
Absolutely a never-ending cycle. What I'm doing to prepare at the moment is studying a bit harder, having the better grades, providing hopefully a better job for myself, so the job can help me then prepare and be ready for the recession. But I don't think that it will be easy, and I don't think it will get easier with time, because I'm 21 years old. As a young person, as you said, it's going to be very challenging to find my place in the world and be self-sufficient. Let's put it that way.
Well, maybe not losing my position after 34 years of work. We've even prepared for it now because just, made sure our mortgage payments are reasonable, credit cards are paid off, just money in the bank, all that kind of good advice stuff.
Honestly, I think we're already in a recession. It's hard to prepare for something you're already in, so I'm just kind of doing my best to get day by day.
Mentally, I am kind of seeing a lot of layoffs in the news, like in the States, a lot of these tech companies. I think they were way over bloated than like other sectors. So I think that's kind of a canary in the coal mine kind of thing. I'm just saving money, not really changing much, eating out less, that kind of thing.
We've changed our spending habits. We've looked to reduce debt wherever possible. Thinking that the interest rates are going to continue to rise. So, I do believe we're in a recession, no matter how it's painted. I feel that way, but...
Well, we're just making smarter decisions on our investments and properties and things like that. And we're trying not to spend right now as like we would, look into more properties and things. We're holding back and watching and seeing what's about to happen.
Unfortunately, I'm not preparing. With everything becoming so much more expensive, it's just becoming a little out of reach to prepare. Investments that were made a couple of years ago are no longer, are kind of actually impacting us today. So, no, I would like to be preparing. Unfortunately, I'm not.
I think that is a really good question. So inflation is here. Inflation is a very important factor for all of us. But inflation in Canada is much less than it is in Europe or in Denmark, where I've been living for a long time. And factors here, like the cost of energy, they're relative. In Denmark, they're so high. I think everybody should be careful with their economy and their finances. And whether I'm preparing for an inflation, I'm not preparing for scarcity, we'll put it like that. And I think we have to remember that we live in a country with a lot of resources, where we're well taken care of. Perhaps we have to be careful with what we buy or plan ahead. But no scarcity and no panic.
Personally, not, because I'm retired and I've planned it for the last 30 years, being careful about that. But I think that we should all prepare for it. It's a normal cycle, and we need to make sure that we try to go through it without too many people losing jobs.
How should we best prepare for a recession?
Well, it's important for people to watch their debt, personal debt. In terms of personally, we come from a small business family, and we've been through the recession in 1980, and my dad's business went through it because they had put some money aside and they had not bought themselves luxury stuff. They just kept the liquidity, so they were able to go through it. So to us, it's our perspective in our family to always be ready and have some savings.
It's a big word, recession. Yes, I hear it all over the world. Yes, we see the prices are rising and rising. I think for myself, I'm not a big spender, so that helps me in the first place. And I can honestly, thank God, I have kind of a job where I can say I'll be a bit stable. So I can say, okay, with being careful what I'm spending, and thank God I have a job, so I think I would be okay during the recession. And thank God I didn't buy the home we were maybe supposed to buy last year, and we thought, we hold off, and it was a good idea, to hold off. And now the interest rates are high, and I said, okay, so we don't have that on our back either, that we say we just bought a home, and now the prices are going, interest rates are up, a recession is coming, and then you're stuck. Then you're really stuck. So I'm glad I do my thing and just spend wisely, really just the necessary things.
Which of the following is the longest-serving female member of Parliament in Canadian history? Is it Hetty Fry, Libby Davies, or Elizabeth May? The answer, Hetty Fry. Dr. Hetty Fry is the longest-serving female member of Parliament in Canadian history. She was first elected to Parliament in October 1993, winning Vancouver Centre, a riding which up to that time was held by Prime Minister Kim Campbell. With that election win, she also became the first rookie MP to defeat an incumbent Prime Minister in their own riding. In the 2021 federal election, Dr. Hetty Fry was elected for the 10th consecutive time in her Vancouver Centre riding.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.